And welcome everybody to LNF.com for the best of the year 2015, and we're going to be talking about the best story of 2015. I know we played a lot of games, and at the end of the year here, I kind of played some of the Telltale games a little bit, but
They've got good stories in there.
They do have very good stories.
the Game of Thrones one, let's talk about that real quick, dude.
Just beat it?
Yeah, you just took it down. How you feeling about the story of it? I know you mentioned that the Tales from the Borderlands was really good, but then you kind of circled back and you played that, and then now you finished up Game of Thrones. And
I really like the story. I think it's very well done. My only tiny, and I still think the game's amazing. I'm not like cutting on the game, but it just felt so similar to the books that are already written. Basically, it was like another.
It's kind of a rehash a little.
Yeah, it was like another Stark, like the
parallel
Starks times
storylines,
2.
different characters.
Yeah, so that, I mean, it still was really awesome and fun. It was well written, well voice acted, but it felt just a little shy for me of being the best story. But it was still good, yeah.
And Tales from the Borderlands, was it better than
that
Game of Thrones?
one. Yeah.
I started playing it, dude. Super awesome, man.
It's
like
got comedy. It's got twists. There's like feels. Like the music's awesome in it, which like brings your emotions into it.
It's
It's got the feels, yo.
Feelings.
Lots of feels.
Yeah, and I like, and me, like, as a huge Borderlands fan, I haven't really touched the Telltale games series at all. So like for me, the Telltale stories, like, I don't really know how they do it. But Tales from the Borderlands, they captured Borderlands, like the games. Like, I'm a huge Borderlands fan, and like you play it and you boot it up and you start your character, and it's like everything from like the intro to it to like, you know, the way they introduce the characters, and like the story is phenomenal, man. It's actually better than 90% of the stories that you find in Borderlands on
Yeah,
like the
to
little
be
quests
honest.
and stuff, dude. They actually did a really good job doing that. And then we also got Until Dawn. Awesome story. I mean, literally, the game
Choose
is
your
the
own
story.
adventure.
It was like
so choose
it's a
your own
perfect
adventure
horror
Yeah.
story. Like
Did it hold up well? I mean, all
the
the way
writing
through,
was
like,
really solid for like
Yeah.
to have like real actors in a game, and to give them lines to deliver that didn't ruin it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
and they did have quality actors in there too.
It's probably better than most horror movies.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
story with that, like
yes.
better story in that video game than most movies, which
Yeah.
is kind of hard to do.
It had pretty interesting twists and turns that weren't the best, but they like kept you intrigued, and when you didn't feel like cheated when you got them
Gotcha.
for the most part.
Yeah.
So it was good.
And was a little like, yeah, but you can't do too much with a lot of horror stories sometimes. So
It's got to end with a cut, dude.
there's
Someone
something.
get
I
their
mean,
head
the
chopped
best part
off.
also the interludes between the chapters with the way they
Yeah.
handled that part of the story
That was
to
great.
like move the story from chapter to chapter was like
With
one of
the
my favorite things all year
psychiatrist
long.
guy, he
The
was really
psychiatrist.
cool.
I
Yeah.
do remember seeing him, and
That
I
was
actually
so
like that
sweet.
actor a lot, dude.
Yeah.
I like that they made it look like the actors too, as well. It just wasn't some random like looking characters like it. So they tried to do a really good job with the movie and the telling of the story as well. And another game this year that came out right at the tail end of it, Undertale. Not trying to make a pun, but Undertale
sure.
came out, and that was like a out of nowhere game that you told me about on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I finally got a chance to check it out, and the story is really good in that game because it engages you to like make morally right or wrong decisions, and
And it makes you feel those decisions that
Yeah.
you've just made.
by like characters like
Yeah.
way at the end, and like
Or even in the middle, and like things like people know what you've done, and you're just like, oh, I didn't even mean to kill that person. I didn't know. And
how did you know I did that?
yeah, you know?
Even the first 15 minutes is just like a great intro, and
Yeah.
it's just like you just know like by the time that's done you're like in for something kind of special in like
And
the
unique,
storytelling
yeah.
ways. Yeah.
It did suck for me though because I started playing it and the story was really good, but I didn't know the concept of the game and like the whole mechanics of it. So I'm playing it and like I'm trying to level up and kill things, and that's not how the game works. Like
Yeah.
you can kill 1,000 dudes, you're not getting like XP. Like you're changing the story arc a little bit, you know, and you can befriend bosses and like they can join you, or you can hate them and like get away from them. Like it was really cool the way that it was all interwoven. I just picture like this map of things and like
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
little square, and then there's like arrows all over the place like for all the shit that you can do. And I think a game to capture a story like that and all these branching paths is pretty good.
I mean, then you put something else on there like Fallout 4, right?
yeah,
And
Oh,
I don't really
there's-
think that
Yeah,
belongs
it
on
has
the
I mean, you're not
no
playing that
Made
really
the
for the
list.
story.
No.
You're playing that just like see what next crazy thing can happen.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
not. I mean, sure, there's like some cool little side quests and stuff, but the Bethesda games in general are never story really.
it's experiences.
Yeah.
And there might be part of the story that some people play that others might not even ever play because they don't have to get to certain
To-
parts of the
Yeah.
world. And,
On a game like that big, yeah.
So that's because I felt the same way about Fallout 4 that I feel about The Witcher 3 story. And maybe I just play The Witcher 3 wrong. I just get in this world and it's just like all these little side quests. And I guess maybe they all interlock and make this beautiful story, but I just never got that. And I don't know how you guys felt about that story.
The main story is solid. If you can, that's the hard part though, is being able to ignore the side quests because you get good gear, or you get gold, or you get cool runes, and so it's the same with Dragon Age Inquisition. Like a year or so back when you're playing it, and if you get like, oh, but there's all these cool things to do,
Yeah.
and you lose track of what the main story is, which is kind of why normally before I'd played Tales from the Borderlands, I'd be like, oh, Witcher 3, hands down. Because I've read the books, and like
Yeah.
I love the world, and I've played the other two Witcher games, and I'm just like, well, of course it's the best one, and like the DLC was cool and it added a lot more stuff. But after like playing Tales from the Borderlands, I'm just like, but it was so good, and I stayed up way later than I should have multiple times just to
No,
finish it in like
man.
3 days.
I
Like
know you tore that thing
I
apart.
couldn't stop. It was so addicting. But like the actual core story of The Witcher 3 is really solid though. It's a good game. It's a very good story.
It's so well written. Like the side quests,
Yeah.
like don't get me wrong, those side quests are like better than the writing in like a ton of RPGs. They're so good. They're so strong.
Yeah.
And they get you in. I don't know. Like the way you're talking about Tales, I just have a hard time putting that in the same breath as
And
anything.
you're right though, but then also too, you can go into the argument like, oh, they're different games, blah blah blah. But if you're just like looking at the core of the story,
Yeah.
I kind of think because it's, I don't know. I love Witcher 3, and I'm not hating on it by any means, and it does have a very good story. But I don't think after playing the Tales games, it's my favorite.
I'm
the
okay with
year.
Tales from the Borderland. Everything I've seen of it sounds really, really interesting.
Tales of the Borderlands blew me away, and I want to talk about The Witcher 3 again. I get what you guys are saying because now that we talk about it and I think about it, and I can see a lot of people saying, well, Witcher 3 story, like you said, is amazing. But to me, like dude, attention span, fucking short as shit.
Zero.
Dude.
I'm like all over the place.
Yeah, dude. So like, I start doing that main story. Holy crap, it's awesome. I start doing some side quests. Get lost. I get back to the main story. Personally, maybe that's not. I kind of forget what the hell's happening. I forget why I'm even talking to this Baron. Like, and then like everything has to slowly come back to me. Like, the story should just like continue. And like I know there's so much shit to do, and you can do that, but like it's gotta like engage me a little bit more.
You have to force
dude.
yourself to just stick to the main story.
And it's hard because the game is built around doing everything else.
And there's so many fun things to explore and Witcher
Yeah.
contracts. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is all so cool. And like, you hear little people crying out for help, and you're like, I'm going to save you. And then that sidetracks you, and you do another quest, and you're just like, oh man, what was I doing again? Like,
Yeah, it's weird. You know what? I kind of equate it to like Mass Effect in the way like when I play Mass Effect, it has like tons of different things to do on the side, but I always want to do that main story. Like I feel like the main story is so strong that I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna stop doing all this crap and focus on this. In The Witcher, I was just like, I don't know, this side stuff is pretty interesting. I want to just keep doing some of that.
Yeah.
I'm not that into the main story, but that's
I-
just.
But damn, but then that's
It's-
saying like it's got really good
It's
stories.
got really,
to it.
it's like this entire package of amazing story.
I think part of that appeal too is if you haven't played the other games and you're just sort of thrown into The Witcher 3. I mean, I understood what was happening and such, but I've played the other ones and like read the books and all that kind of things. So being sort of like, I'm just going to start playing the Witcher series, you don't really have anything to stand
And
on.
that was my perspective. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing for me to lock on. Like, oh, I'm really interested in this story. All of
Yeah.
because I'm just being thrown into the story.
Yep. So it's not really fair then to new people that are new to the world because you're like, what's happening? Who are you again?
Just all kinds of crazy stuff happening.
Yeah.
With naked people and
You know you liked it. That was your
You
favorite
loved
part.
it.
Dem boobies.
All those baths you can take.
a lot of bats
So,
in there.
so where are we here on our, best story of the year 2015? Fallout we can obviously take out.
Yeah,
like
no
we
way.
don't really we're all on the same page with Fallout 4.
I'm okay with taking off Until Dawn. I thought it was really good, but it's not as good as to me as like
As
Undertale.
gripping and-
Yeah.
Undertale's really good.
I'm thinking
too.
Undertale. And Tristan, I don't know where your thoughts are on Game of Thrones,
I was
Tales of the
talking Game of Thrones,
Borderlands.
but even thinking about Game of Thrones, another story-based game that I played, Life is Strange,
Oh,
where
yeah.
it was a unique story, a story that I never thought I'd relate to, but I actually got invested in the story.
You were talking about the soundtracks every
Yeah, I
week,
mean-
and
I'm hyping the soundtrack on that game for sure, but the story was a solid story. They did some interesting things, though, changing the past and all that, and what affects the future. That stuff always interests me because I'm a sucker for time travel stuff.
Sliders, Back to the Future.
Yeah, yeah.
I love sliders.
The Tales from the Borderlands sounds like an overall well put together story and slightly better than other things I've played.
Oh, dude, the comedy, like the action, like it just
I'm not gonna
flows,
ruin the
man.
ending, but there's a really cool twist in there. Just saying.
That I
had
don't
no
see
idea.
coming?
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like, what? Wow.
Yeah, dude. So I think we're kind of up in the air on Undertale.
I know. I'm
and,
sticking with Undertale. It
and
was
Tales
just
of
so
the Tales from the Borderlands.
See, because it's like, yeah,
emotional
if
in the beginning for
you
me.
haven't played it, and like Life is Strange, I personally didn't touch, but I really, really want to. It sucks that I didn't throw that in there, so I could have argued it more for Game of the Year or Story of the Year thing. But
You said it kind of fell apart at the end, though.
It did fall apart because I mean they had 5 chapters and yet it fell apart at the end because they got so crazy by episode 4. Like, how the heck can they even
they just
like they kind of like pushed too far. Like they reached a level where they couldn't like, whoa, we have to do another chapter now, and that's where they kind of had downfall. If they only had 4 volumes and then just
It was
ended
a winner.
there, then
We would've given it
yes,
the award.
Yes, for sure. But they kind
Man.
of ruined it with the last chapter.
Man, dude,
Unfortunately.
I'm stuck tossing between Tales from the Borderlands and Undertale. And you're on Tales of the Borderlands.
yeah, I really liked
More so.
Undertale. I think it's cool. It has a lot of emotional stuff. Like you're just like, oh my god, like I just did that. Okay, or but you know, really,
You got really sad when I was making some decisions.
yeah.
Like almost to the crying part. I was just
cry.
You cry all.
Wow,
Oh
you're-
my! We're not gonna get into it.
Yeah, we'll save that for the block party.
Maybe I'll be crying.
The gameplay in Undertale was really strong too, right?
Yes,
But
for sure.
it was the story that always kept you wanting to keep playing that game, meeting the new characters and seeing like how those characters would end up and where they would go. That was so good to me. Tales from the Borderlands. I
Yeah.
don't know. Telltale pumps out so many games, and the fact that this game still stands out from all the other ones that they pumped out
I
is
didn't
pretty
even want to
interesting.
play it, to be honest. I know I said that on the block party before. I had no desire to play it. I've played the Borderland games, and I'm just like, whatever, they're okay. And based on the Borderland game stories, I'm like, yeah, it's kooky and weird. But then, you had downloaded it, you popped it in, and I was just like, oh, there's something engaging about this that actually made me purchase this game that I was like, whatever.
Does it give you like a new perspective on the Borderlands games?
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
It makes me want to play a third one. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to play the next Borderlands game. Where is it?
Yes, and who knows if it's coming. And they also did like little nods to the series in there
it's
too,
cool.
like little things like a conference call. If anyone's played Borderlands, they got the conference call in there. It's like one of the most freaking I don't want to spoil it, but it was like a weapon that you could cheat and like destroy everybody really easily with in the beginning of it. They had
If
to
someone
nerf the
didn't
shit
like
out of it.
Borderlands, they could still enjoy this.
Dude, I think
Yeah.
totally.
I think I'm okay with it.
Tristan,
I'd go Borderlands route.
I'm okay with it.
Because I like Telltale.
I am.
Yay! Good Tristan.
The first and only Telltale game I actually played, and like it blew me away. So now I need to
This is
experience.
the first
something
Telltale
else.
game we're giving an award to.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
dude?
surprisingly.
So unanimous, best story of 2015 in a video game on LFNav.com goes to Tales from the Borderlands. It snuck in like literally at the end of the year, and this is why we try to wait till the last to the end of the year, because if I didn't get my hands on that game, dude,
I wouldn't have.
we wouldn't have been able
Yeah.
to actually really justify it. And the game is amazing. You guys should definitely check it out.